Hello and good morning all. Welcome to this interactive Q&A clinic on the human variations web-based eAF. So this session is really organized to give you time to ask any questions that you may have in relation to our web-based eAF. We also have colleagues from PMS and product UI side. So if you have any questions related to the product data, we will of course try and address those questions as long as they're in relation to the eAF itself. Also, if you have a very practical question on how do I fill in a particular section of the eAF, this is also a great opportunity to ask those questions. So we have the Slido open, so please feel free to ask any of your questions using the Slido tool. You can remain anonymous or you can use your name. We will also, of course, address questions there in writing, and we are collecting a list of questions and answers that we will also publish where you can refer back to any of the answers that were given during these sessions. Please note that in Slido, you can also upvote questions. So if you see an interesting question that you also want to have the answer to, we will start responding from the most upvoted questions. But please, as interactive as possible. And just as a reminder, this is definitely not the last of these sessions. So we haven't scheduled or announced yet further Q&A sessions for this year, but there may be one even before Christmas, but definitely early next year when we start using towards the strongly recommended use also for the non-centrally authorized products. We will be organizing more training sessions and more interactive Q&A sessions. But let's get started.
Okay, so first question. Is it recommended to correct data in XEF-MDP database by MAHs as a lot of data is missing or it's not correct?
So I can take maybe this question. I have actually replied because it would be interesting for us to know what do you mean with missing data or incorrect. So the data that you have in XEV-MPD has been migrated to PMS. Then you need to understand that PMS, the data model, is bigger than the one from XEV-MPD. So obviously in PMS, there will be missing data, but it's the one that is not in XEV-MPD. Everything that you have in XEV-MPD should be in PMS. And if this is not the case, then you need to log a ticket in ServiceNow so we can check, or you can maybe check also the PMS Q&A document because we have identified a couple of issues, and maybe the issue is that it's already known and it's reflected in this document. Now, if the data is not correct in XEV-MPD, if you have identified any data quality issue on the name or, I don't know, indications or whatever, you need to correct this data in XEV-MPD. So the correct data is captured there, and then it will also be corrected in PMS. So yeah, I would say this would be our answer to this question. But if you have missing data in PMS and you are sure that you have it in XEV-MPD, you can raise a ticket and we can investigate.
Thank you, Marcos. Okay, then I'll go to the next question. As non-CAPS data is available in PLM already, when will it be mandatory to use eAF for national procedures? Some national authorities actually push back on acceptance of eAF and insist on using their national application forms.
Okay, I can take that. So indeed, we went live with the non-CAPS data in the PLM portal eAF on the 14th of October. So now until end of this year, we have this, let's call it an exploratory period during which we are strongly recommending all applicants and marketing authorization holders to familiarize themselves with the system for non-centrally authorized products. So there are some differences to the caps, or some users may be completely new to the system. So this is a great opportunity to play around in a production system, have a look if all the data is correct, all the functions work as expected. However, the mandatory period, when do we start the mandatory use for purely national procedures? So what we are doing now, in January, we will start what we call a strongly recommended use of the web-based form for all procedure types. So not only for centralized procedure, but also for non-centrally authorized procedure types. So MRP, DCP, and purely national. The mandatory use will be launched later on. So there are quite a few steps that we need to take before we can start the actual transition towards the mandatory use. But we are going directly to the one step just before mandatory use, which is the strongly recommended use. This comment on some national authorities pushback on the acceptance of eAF is quite worrying. So I would definitely be very, very interested to hear who these NCAs are and why they're doing this. So if you are facing an issue where an NCA is not accepting the use of the European electronic application form and insist a use on their national application form, could you please provide us this detail? You can send us a service desk ticket or even drop some names of those NCAs into the Q&A. We won't be showing that, of course, here. If you want to remain anonymous, but it would be really, really important for us to understand this so that we can then discuss with these NCAs what are the issues and what could be the reasons leading for such behavior, because of course the use of the eAFs, the interactive PDFs, has been mandatory since 2012. So if there are now NCAs who still insist use on the national application, it would be good to understand the reasons behind this.
Thank you, Christina. Let's take the next question. How to avoid multiple logs out during the application form populating?
I would guess here by multiple logouts, you would mean timing out from the system. So the system will remain active, but it is true there is a timeout period if you don't touch the application for quite some hours. I can't remember now how many hours this period is. I think it's at least 4 hours. I think we extended it because the timeout was happening quite regularly. It might even be longer than 4 hours. So this is something that is just for your, let's say, safety and security, but you would need to log in at least on daily basis. Also, if there has been some kind of, let's call it a production deployment, sometimes we may do production fixes on the background, even during working hours, to fix some specific aspect on the form that may, of course, cause a logout. But if this is a very persistent behavior, I would be interested to hear of this and how often you experience these logouts so that we can further investigate.
Okay, thank you. I think we have an answer here from the NCA's. The Polish health authorities refuse to use the eAF web form. So that could help us in contacting them. Yeah. So next up is, are there any known issues or errors with the new eAF during publishing process via publishing tools?
We have been working quite a lot to try and understand how different ECTD publishing and building tools are handling the PDF rendition. earlier, when we first started seeing more and more forms in production, we had some tools indeed had issues where, for example, the XML, the Fire XML attachment was stripped out of the PDF during the publication process. I think there has also been some other issues with some tools, but the majority of the tools should be behaving correctly with these renditions. So if you are getting validation feedback from the EMA in relation to your ECTD or invalid ECTD, or something is wrong with the eAF, we would always try and indicate whether it could be the tool that has caused that. But please provide us more information on any particular issue, and of course raise this with your public ECTD building tool vendor, because they would be in the best position to address the issues. If needed, we can of course meet also with that tool vendor to try and better understand if there is some issue that they have misunderstood how the thing should work. Thank you.
Thank you, Christina. So next up, we're experiencing some bugs in the PLM eAF. The service help desk took some time to respond. Could the response from EMA service help desk be established within 1 or 2 working days?
Yes, this is a difficult one. I understand when you have an urgent issue, you need to submit, your submission deadline is coming. It is really difficult to wait. So in those cases, of course, if you know you've got an urgent issue, please indicate that it's an urgent issue in the ticket. So hopefully it comes to the top of the queue. Also, what is important is the selection of the correct system when you're raising the ticket. Sometimes the tickets may unfortunately go to an incorrect person, to an incorrect queue, and then they are not handled as quickly as they should be. We are trying to address the tickets normally as quickly as we can, or at least give you a holding answer if there's an issue that we need to do further digging around in the background, or try and do an urgent fix. But we know that there are sometimes delays, and we definitely try and address tickets as quickly as possible, but I understand that sometimes there are delays.
Okay, so next question is, EMA is currently not reinforcing the signature requirement in applications without signature are being accepted. Any update on the mandatory requirement to sign eAF or linked with the PLM user of web-based eAF when finalizing the form?
Yes, indeed. We are not currently reinforcing the signature requirement. This is also due to the fact that we are working on implementing something what we call an integrity stamp. So this will mean that when you have edited your form in the PLM portal and you come to the step to finalize, upon finalizing the form, the exported PDF will already contain an EMA actual ADAS compliant digital signature, which will say that the form has been generated from the EMA system. We have unfortunately had some minor issues in relating to the implementation of this feature. So we are already testing it in lower environments, but it is unfortunately not quite yet ready to be launched in production. We are hoping that it might still come before end of this year, but if not so, then early in Q1 we will be able to implement this feature. But currently, indeed, you don't need to sign. You can, however, if you want. So you can use a real digital signature, you can use an Adobe signature, or even an image of a signature.
Thank you, Christina. Here we have another question about mandatory use. So are there any updates to the mandatory timelines of the web-based eAF?
Unfortunately, not at this moment. So we do carefully assess where we are at each time point. We have already started preparations for our next planning event for the first quarter of next year. Currently, we have some data issues in PMS and in Iris Dataverse where we're taking the PMS data that must be addressed before we can even consider triggering or thinking of mandatory timelines. Additionally, we have some other issues relating to how organizational data is used inside, again, in the eAF and in the Iris Dataverse. So until those issues have been solved, we're unfortunately unable to give an update of a estimated timeline for the mandatory use. But we will keep you updated. And the next step, indeed, for non-CAPs is the strongly recommended use, and for centralized procedure, we already strongly recommend the use of the web-based application forms.
Thank you, Christina. So next one. What internal process for eAF review do you recommend? Review in the web interface or the final PDF?
I would recommend, in fact, both. So, of course, those who are more familiar with the web-based eAF, you know the interface looks completely different from the PDF export. So even the order of the sections, there are a lot of automated calculations. So while you're filling in information in the web user interface, you may not even be fully sure which section of the PDF you're filling in. So of course, great to check that all the data is correct in the web interface, but it is the final PDF that you attached into the ECTD sequence that is sent to the regulator. So you must make sure that the final PDF reflects this information correctly. We know there may be some issues, and we are trying to, of course, always address these issues. But for example, currently with some data issues, the active substance may be missing from the form, and in the coming weeks we will be doing a data fix, which during which all the active substances that is in the section 2 of the exported PDF will be missing. So there are some things that could behave slightly differently, and whatever is shown in the web user interface may not show exactly the same way in a PDF. So please always check the final PDF before you submit. And also what I would strongly recommend is, once you have created your ECTD sequence, so you've zipped the package, you've published, please open the eAF from that zip package and check that it's not been tampered by any zipping tool or by the ECTD building tool, because in case it gets corrupted when an incorrect zipping tool is used. So it's always best to check before you send the final package.
Thank you. So go back to national authorities. Which national authorities didn't accept new web-based forms, and are there any non-local recommendations?
So at this point of time, of course, the web-based application form is not, it's not yet possible to send it to the national competent authorities. This is due to the upcoming change in the variation regulation. The updated variation regulation enters into force on 1st of January next year, 2025. So until then, we are actually not allowing the submission of the web-based forms to the national competent authorities, because this would have added technical complexity in our implementation in the web-based forms. So until the end of the year, you must use the interactive PDF. From the beginning of next year, you can use the web-based application form to submit to the national competent authorities. We have not been told by CMDH that the NCAs would not accept these forms. It was mentioned earlier in this session that there is an NCA who is not accepting the eAF. I will be contacting our CMDH representative from this competent authority to check if there are any specific local requirements, but this should not be the case, at least beyond and above of the CMDH published national requirements document, which you can find from the CMDH website.
Okay, thank you. So next question, will YouTube videos or instruction about populating web-based eAF be updated as the short videos that are now published from 2 years ago?
Absolutely, yes. This is something that we know that we definitely need to do. And I think I even mentioned it just a few days ago to my colleagues that we need to start updating these videos. We will probably do this in the beginning of next year because, as I mentioned, we have the new variation regulation coming. But additionally, there are some quite one could say significant changes coming to some areas of the form. So we will be, for example, launching a new present and proposed section. So for that, we will definitely organize some training sessions, but we will also update the training videos and instructions on how to use that new, much more user-friendly section. There are also some let's say just UX changes, user interface update changes that are coming early next year, and we may also be implementing other changes. So yes, we will try and of course keep these videos up to date, but if the video is out of date and you're not able to use it, please note that the user guide, the document is also published, and that should contain ideally more recent screenshots and instructions.
Thank you, Christina. So next one, is it possible to change the status of a form which was already finalized and submitted to the EMA from draft to final?
To change the status that you have already submitted to EMA, if you didn't do the finalization when you first exported and sent it, but you would like to do that now, you can, but by clicking the finalize button in the form. So basically, when you have the draft open, this is not a function that you can do in one of the options in the application form list. But when you have the actual form open, don't make any additional edits, just simply click the finalize button and it will then move into the completed tab.
Thank you. I think we can still take a few more questions. So as there are a lot of mistakes in PMS, this will cause issues in the eAF as long as the mistakes are not corrected. Shall we submit eAFs with mistakes from January onwards?
It depends on the mistake. So this really makes me a little bit curious on what type of mistakes we're talking about here. So again, we know there are some data issues. So I think this is a little bit case by case. I don't know, Marcos or Veronica, if you'd like to add anything about mistakes in PMS. What should applicant do if they detect these? Is there a difference what they should do if this is a centrally authorized product versus a nationally authorized product?
Yeah, so I think it depends on the issue because it is not the same, for example, that a product is missing packages, or for example, for a product in Belgium or in Finland, you only have one name. So these are different issues. Or the MA holder is a different one because we have not updated with the latest version of OMS, and therefore in the eAF, you will have like a different MA holder, and that is an issue that you cannot submit the form with a wrong name of the marketing authorization holder. But you can send the form if the For example, you don't have the 3 names for the product in Belgium. So that depends on the issue. You need to check the product, how it is in PMS, and then assess a bit if that has an impact or not on the eAF. You can also check the product and maybe the issue is in XEVMPD and you need to correct first XEVMPD so all the packages, for example, are grouped under the same medicinal product, and then you can continue using this product in other systems. So yeah, I think it's a bit of checking if the issue is a known issue, check if you can correct the issue, and then yeah, you can either use it in the eAF or yeah, if the issue is blocking the eAF, then obviously you need to go to the PDF one.
Thank you, Marcos.
Thank you, Marcos. Okay, I think we're almost out of time, but I think we can maybe dig a bit more about this. So we got something else about logouts. So I experience logout very frequently, every couple of minutes. What should I do?
Please raise a ticket. This is definitely not as per design. As I mentioned, the timeout period should be at least 4 hours. I think we extended it so that it's for the whole day. So it might lock you out in the middle of the night. But I remember at some point it had gone down to maybe 2 hours and I was getting annoyed of having to log in every couple of hours, whereas I can definitely understand you if it's every couple of minutes. That's unacceptable. So please do raise a ticket, but also maybe check internally if there is something that with the connection or firewall, but please do raise a service desk ticket if this is happening, because it shouldn't.
Okay, thank you, Christina. I think we can wrap up. I don't know if we have time for another question. Would you want to take this one?
Yes. So this, I will definitely raise it with Poland and to see, you know, what is the purpose? Are they not intending to? Why do they have a national form? So we will have this discussion at the CMDH to see what the intention is with any national forms. And maybe I will very quickly address the next question, because there are 4 thumbs up on that. So the variation classification guideline. Yes, the classification guideline will be updated, I believe, this summer. So yes, the numbering will change. So we are taking the classification guidelines from RMS, from our SPORE database. So it will be, of course, reflected in the web-based application form and in the interactive PDF. Here we will probably need to have some kind of to parallelity. So if you have started the application while the old regulation is still in force, during an ongoing application, you wouldn't change that. So we will need to make sure that the numbers don't change for applications that have been started prior to the change, and then the new applications will have the new classification guidelines. So this is technically slightly more complicated to implement, but we will make sure that that the correct regulation will be applied and the classification guideline will be applied.
Okay, thank you very much. I think we stop here. In the meantime, I've opened a survey to kind of get your feedback on this session. So at the same Slido, you can leave your feedback, please. That is very important for us to understand how to improve these sessions. Yeah, Christina, I don't know if you want to say maybe last few words, some next steps.
So indeed, thank you all for participating today, and thank you for great questions. This is also very useful for us because we get input directly from the users, and we can then try and address any particular issues in the guidance or in training. So as I mentioned earlier, we have future upcoming sessions. So the first one mentioned here, it's only for the national competent authorities on the fire. But after that, in December, we of course, have the public system demo, and then we will have some additional information sessions, Q&A clinics, and training sessions. Please note that the Slido will remain open, and we will address your questions in writing, and we are working on a Q&A document to compile all these questions and answers from all these different Q&A sessions. With that, thank you very much and have a great day.